What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome back to Warriors Latest. As always, I am your host, Max Arizin. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the show today, as I do post new Warriors videos daily, and it does help the show continue to grow as the season moves along. Now, tonight we have another interesting game against the Spurs, especially after that comeback on Wednesday, and that was an amazing comeback. I honestly did not expect that after the first quarter, and I love to see how the team really played together and put in that work to get that win and grind it out. It showed real heart and togetherness that the Warriors really have lacked since the start of the season. There were times that they were together, but a lot of the times, again, like Draymond said, there were those personal agendas in the locker room that were overshadowing the collective goal to win a title. Now that they've shown that they can come back against a great team, especially after that loss on Tuesday against the Thunder, I like where this team is heading, especially into this. The third NBA Cup group play game. And even though it is back-to-back against the Spurs, I like that they've been staying in San Antonio since Wednesday. So they're here. They were there Wednesday. They were there yesterday. They're here today. They're going to be there tomorrow, and then they're going to travel. Tomorrow night for their game on Sunday. Now, against this game, again, there are going to be the same issues that they faced against the Spurs on Wednesday. Wemby is just a man amongst boys. He knows how to completely take advantage of the offensive and defensive boards because he's just so much bigger than the likes of Draymond and Al Horford. Now, while Draymond and Al Horford might be a little stronger, you just can't teach height. And my big hope for this game is that they incorporate Quentin Post a whole lot more than they did in the game Wednesday, where Post only played 5 minutes. And when you're going up against a team that has a guy who's 7'6" and can shoot deep from three and can just literally grab rebounds over you without getting that over-the-top foul, you need to put another 7-footer in there. Yes, Al Horford, strong, experienced. Draymond, strong, experienced. But, I mean, when you're here and the guy who's trying to grab a rebound against you is all the way up here, sorry, but that's just not going to work. I don't care how strong you are down here. Up here is going to get the rebound. And if they're going to dominate the glass on the Spurs and they play that two big man lineup like they did at the end of the game on Wednesday with Luke Cornett and Wemby, it's just going to be a very big problem that the Warriors have to face, especially on a primetime game like tonight is, where it's a NBA Cup game. And there's a little bit more riding on it, so it's kind of like a playoff game, but it really isn't. But it's sort of just a motivating kind of game, especially early in the season, because you don't want to play behind the 8 ball, because that's what the Warriors did last season, and it came back to bite them in the long run. I don't want to see that happen, and again, the Warriors need to do something to address the issue with the bigs, but it doesn't look like they're going to be able to address that for at least the coming month and a half, until at least Jonathan Kuminga becomes trade eligible, or they find a deal where they can ship Pods or Buddy Hield in exchange for a solid big man who can fit in the middle while they look for other things or other players to fill out the rotation and really help Draymond and Al Horford and Quentin Post in the middle. But the good news is that Sacramento's slow start may afford them some opportunities to acquire a big man. Now, at the beginning of the season, I thought Sacramento was going to be that team. They have Russell Westbrook, perfect guy at the 1. They got Zach LaVine, great scorer, slasher at the 2. They've got, who is it? They have DeMar DeRozan at the 3. They have, I guess, Keegan Murray when he comes back, mixing with Precious Chinwa at the 4, and then Sabonis at the 5. Unfortunately, that has only resulted in a 3-9 record to start, and I feel like it's every day or every other day I'm seeing Doug Christie complain about the output of the Kings roster and how their heart really isn't in it. And when that happens, the only thing you can really think of is that, you know what? A fire sale is coming sooner or later, and the Warriors need to take full advantage of that, especially considering that the Kings are probably going to make Domantas Sabonis available in trade talks. Now, with Domantas Sabonis, we saw before that the Kings were interested in bringing in Jonathan Kuminga, and Sabonis has a bit of a longer contract. Now, if they say they trade Sabonis in exchange for Kuminga and maybe another player, boom, we have our center moving forward and the guy in the middle who's going to be able to really physically move around the likes of Hartenstein, the likes of, God, Alperen Sengun, Steven Adams, even Wemby, Joker, guys like that. Somebody who can actually compete in the middle, grab those rebounds, and constantly get you double-digit boards, both on the offensive and defensive end combined. So I do like that. It's sort of time. It's a time will tell kind of thing. And I do like that we could also pick off some other players from them to continue to improve the roster. Because if the Kings continue this downward slide, it's just another lottery year. And it just goes to show stuff like you don't fire the coach of the year like they did with Mike Brown last year just because you're having a few bumps in the road. The coach is the most important part for the synergy with his players. And just because the players are paid a lot doesn't mean it's the coach's fault. And if they hadn't fired Mike Brown, I honestly believe that they would be a lot better off this season than they are with Doug Christie at the helm. Because Christie, he's a first-time coach. I'm not entirely sure if he knows what he's doing, but he has that whole Sacramento aura about him since he was part of that team in 2002 with, it was Mike Bibby, Chris Webber, Peja, Vlade Divac, and Doug Christie. So there is that aura from that run that sort of keeps you on board. The same thing happened when Vlade Divac was the general manager too. He has that aura. He was part of those Kings teams when they were battling the Lakers. And because of that, it gave him a longer leash that he didn't really deserve. And I think this might be the same situation, but a nice reset for the Kings may be in order if things don't go their way, because they don't have a lot to work with. Their point guard is old. They thought they were stepping in the right direction, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's heading that way. And again, the Warriors need to take full advantage and just go hard after Sabonis. Even if it costs, say, a protected first-round pick in this year's draft, I'm okay with that because, you know what? The Warriors aren't aiming to be a lottery team this season. They're aiming to make the playoffs. They're aiming to do some damage in the playoffs, and they're aiming to make it to the NBA Finals and win. And if that means sacrificing an immediate draft pick, so be it. So I hope they take advantage, but it will take some time before they actually can. But in other interesting news I saw was that Steph Curry, the premier athlete for Under Armour, ended his agreement with them. And I got to say, that's a real big L for Under Armour because I can't think of a premier athlete that is with them outside of Steph Curry. I believe like Kemba Walker was with them for a while, but that didn't really pan out because Kemba sort of fizzled out of the league, and Steph Curry was that guy. And ironically, the whole reason that Steph signed with Under Armour over re-signing with Nike is none other than Nico Harris screwing up the presentation for Nike when he was there trying to get him re-signed. Now, as the story goes, they did a similar presentation to re-sign Steph where they accidentally called him Stefan instead of Stephen, and sometimes actually called him Seth instead of Steph. And there were some misprints where Kevin Durant's name was on the presentation over Steph Curry's. And after that, it's like, you know what, game over. Nico Harrison was apparently the primary reason he left Nike, that Steph left Nike for Under Armour. But now that he's leaving Under Armour, he's doing something I find very interesting, and that is going out completely on his own. Now, we've seen this happen before with big baller brand and Lonzo Ball, and that was just a huge dumpster fire. But this time it's a little different, mostly because Steph has an established brand. And with that established brand, people want to be like Steph. And I think having that established brand that's independent is going to play well for Steph in the long term as he continues to grow his brand and go on like that. Now, we look at established brands like, let's say, Tracy McGrady, Michael Jordan, and Allen Iverson. All those brands are subsidiaries of much larger brands. Like I believe, Allen Iverson's brand, subsidiary of Reebok. Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, subsidiary of Nike. T-Mac, I believe that's also a subsidiary of Nike, but I may be wrong on that. It may be, you know what, I think it's Adidas, but I'm not 100% sure. But all those are subsidiaries of other brands. Curry is going completely independent, and I got to admit, I'm a little excited to see where this goes. Yes, Steph is at the end of his career, but he still has that momentum in terms of being a cult of personality, both in the basketball world as well as the pop culture world. So it's going to be interesting to see. Does he continue to maintain his independence moving forward as like a shoe brand or just a brand overall, creating new products that he releases to the public? Or does he eventually sign with a major brand like Nike again, or Adidas, or even some smaller brand where he gets real equity in that brand and continues to build them up? You never know. What I also thought about was how Stephon Marbury and his whole Starbury line really blew up because of how inexpensive and affordable it was, and how crazy the designs were when he was playing for the Knicks, and that brought other people into his brand with Stephen Barry. Then Stephen Barry eventually went out of business, but there's still that brand of Starbury which he kept going. Now, granted, Starbury is nowhere near as big as Steph Curry, but it's an interesting thing to watch moving forward. So I do think Steph is going to do very well independently, and I think he's going to be a trailblazer on how, if you have a certain level of a brand as a basketball player in terms of shoe deals, if you stay independent at a certain level, you can have complete control. And I love him being this pioneer, and I'm excited to see where he goes with it. Now, bottom line is, though, the Dubs have to keep the momentum going versus the Spurs tonight. Look, we saw a bad loss on Tuesday against the Thunder, and that was not okay. We saw a great comeback against the Spurs on Wednesday, which is a great bounce back, but they didn't start off strong, which was concerning, because they didn't have guys like Quentin Post in there. They had Draymond and Al Horford out there trying to guard Wemby, and that's just not going to work. Tonight, I want to see them keep that same momentum going from Wednesday night, but make certain adjustments in order to improve their play out of the gate. And that means putting Quentin Post in there for more than 5 minutes to guard Wemby, because they're going to run this double big lineup again, and it's going to be a very big problem for the Warriors. We saw what happened last week versus the Nuggets when both Joker and Jonas Valanciunas scored in double digits in the post. So something has to be done about that, and I think giving Quentin Post more time on the floor is it not only going to give him experience, at least it's going to limit the likes of Wemby a little bit. And if you could limit him a little bit, you could find other strategies to work around what the Spurs have. Now, they have Steph Castle, they have Devin Vassell, they have Keldon Johnson, they have Sokin, they have Wemby, they have all these guys. And they're going to be a problem for the Warriors, but if the Warriors are a very smart and experienced team, they know how to play around these guys. Now, most likely the Warriors are going to be without Jonathan Kuminga, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Kuminga has been sort of up and down so far this season, and I don't know if we're going to get another night from Jimmy where he's shooting 5 for 7 from 3. So we got to figure out how the Warriors can really just encapsulate a win and just from start to finish be in control of the ball game and the score. But I think the first thing does start, lost my train of thought, but being able to control the score does start with putting the right rotation out there in the starting lineup, and that includes Quentin Post going up against the likes of Wemby at the 5, and maybe having Al Horford at the 4, and Draymond at the 3, if Kuminga is not playing tonight. So they know what they have to do. They have to keep the momentum going, and hopefully we could see them get another big win against the Spurs tonight. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you enjoyed the show today. And if you have any ideas on who the Warriors can get in the meantime to fill that void in the middle, feel free to comment below, as I love hearing your ideas. And as always, go Dubs.